and I'll repost. Hello team, it's Andy here, coming to you from a somewhat more salubrious location. Gang, I know that this might make me seem a little bit try hard doing this from Bali, but realistically, this week is a week that we can't get wrong. We can't mess around with this AML stuff. And my concern with this, and we really tried hard to make this a non-concern, didn't we, Lucas? We really tried hard.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the number of agents that I've spoken to that still haven't got their head wrapped around this and or are panicking about it has made me feel the need to get Lucas to clear his diary, for me to leave my better half sunning away on a sun lounger and have a chat with you guys, because the AML laws that are coming in on July 1st, that's when our obligations to actually make this happen and enact on this starts on July 1. And if you haven't got your head around it, then you're in trouble. And I was chatting to the incredible Christine Nolan, who is part of the Barry Plant Network, and she's been an absolute champion when it comes to all of this sort of stuff, and she's been very, very vocal about it. She and I shared a very common concern that there are countless number of officers that still, some of them haven't even managed to get logged in onto a system yet, Lucas, which is frightening.
Yep.
Let alone get a chance to practice. So gang, I really don't want this to come across as a sail through fear thing, because it's not. Otherwise, if I was concerned about anything other than my bank account, if I was concerned about, I'd go chill out on the beach, right? We've got a duty of care to make sure the industry does not drop the ball on this. A massive duty of care, because if it goes wrong for one, you guys know for a fact that the media will go ham and everybody in the game will suffer as a consequence, right? Can't balls this up. Lucas, thank you so much for jumping on and joining us again. The last session that you did with us was so tremendously well received and really did go a long way to allay a lot of concerns. And team, if you do want to go through some of the ABCs, and we'll just quickly run over it today, but if you want to go through the ABCs of all of these AML changes that are coming through, please go back to the previous YouTube live or the previous LinkedIn live, or if you need it, just hit me up and I'll share the link with you, and I'll put it in the comments as well, so that you can really get across this. Because Lucas, the feedback that I've had off our first session was one of, thank F for that, right? But there are too many people that are still dropping the ball. Mate, what are you seeing as boots on the ground? What are you seeing from the industry in terms of take up and whatnot?
Yeah, look, good intro. Thanks, mate. So look, there's still a lot of agencies that haven't registered. So that's just a straight out of the bat concern. The next one is there's two really bits of information that people are getting confused on, which is really critical. One of them is contractors. So conjunctional agents or people that co-sign agency agreements, Form 6s, etc. And the other one is, when does the legislation start? So it does start, and let me just talk to those 2 points. So the second one is, when does legislation start? So legislation starts on Wednesday, okay? So from Wednesday, you need to be starting to be registered with AUSTRAC, and you need to start undertaking AML checks or verification checks according to your AML plan and your risk assessment plan on all of your existing vendors and any new buyers you start dealing with. So what that means is your existing listings. So any listing that has yet to settle by 30 June is subject to the new legislation. So there's the transition of that process, the transition legislation around how to handle them. And ultimately, once you're registered, you still have your delayed AML component of 15 days, etc. But every listing that you have not settled by 30 June is subject to this new legislation. So if you've been building up your listings or you haven't sold a lot of stock, which a lot of agents have in this down market, the work's going to get quite considerable if you haven't already got your basics in place, which is your AML platform, your registration, etc. Now, it's not too late. You can still register. You can still look to sign up to an AML provider. We are one of those guys, of course. We do have an AML platform and have the AML processes built into our workflow. But you can rely on the AUSTRAC kits, but there's 29 forms to fill out per listing or per person per listing if you use every single one of them. Now, that's a lot of paperwork. So we've digitized a lot of that. The government's giving you these services for free that you can rely on if you don't want to pay for a service, and that's fine. But that's a lot of paperwork. And if you've got a dozen, 2 dozen, or in some of the offices we're speaking to, a few hundred listings, if they haven't started and commenced their AML transition plan, that's going to be a real lot of problems, real lot of headaches for those agencies. The other really big one is contractors. So we've clarified this directly with Neil Jeans. And for those that you don't know, Neil Jeans is a partner at Grant Thornton. He co-wrote the starter kits on behalf of AUSTRAC. So you can't get anyone better. He's an ex-policeman who used to work for Interpol. He arrested Jordan Belfort. That's his claim to fame. Used to be the head of National Australia Bank's Financial Crime Division. So he's a real authority on this. And AUSTRAC selected him to co-write those plans. So he told us directly that if you're a contractor and you're co-signing listings, you fall under the act that you need to register yourself. Okay. Now you can work with your officer's plan and your officer's responsible officer's work, but you still need to register. So you still need to register as an independent reporting body, even though you're co-signing and somebody else in your office is doing your AML checks. So that's important. So when you co-register, you need to know the AML plan number of the office you work at to link your business to theirs. Okay. So we've had a lot of people come up and go, look, I'm a contractor. I don't need to register my business partner or my boss or the business I work for as a contractor or the brand I work for as a contractor said I don't have to register. Well, that's not correct. You do have to register. Now, we were guilty of this. We read it the way that we thought it should be read, which is contractors don't have to register. And we clarified it with AUSTRAC. So we contacted AUSTRAC and say, is this correct? So not only did we hear it from AUSTRAC, we also heard it from the gentleman that built the kits for the government. So that's quite clear. If you're a real estate agency, you have to register for AML now. If you don't, there's big fines. If you have contractors working for you, they also have to register, but they can link to your plan. So there's not a doubling up of overhead and work, okay? So they're the two biggest issues we're hearing out in the market at the moment. When do I do it? What do I got to do? If you're still at that absolutely basic level, you're a long way behind the 8 ball. But those are two of the things we're hearing which are confusing a lot of people.
And let's just to put that into much more simple terms, essentially, if you are a commission-only agent and you are working under your own ABN but trading as brand X, right? So if you've got your own ABN and on all of your authorities you've got your entity, the entity that you've got an ABN registered to, trading as, and then the office that you are commission only for, you are the people that Lucas has just referred to. All right.
Thank you for summing it up, Andy. Much better than I did.
All good. Just because you are a commission-only agent that works as part of a bigger office, if your authorities have your business name trading as the bigger office, you have to register with AUSTRAC. You have to register with AUSTRAC. Now, I was speaking to Lucas's colleague Vanessa over the weekend, and bless her, I think she must be the only lawyer who talks to anyone on a Saturday, so I was tremendously grateful. And if she sees this, I need to say it publicly. Vanessa, that conversation was an absolute gold mine of information, so I can't thank you enough for taking your time out on a Saturday morning and putting up with me, because I was getting geared up for auction, and so it might as well have sounded like I was really racing around on a massive adrenaline high. Team, what she mentioned to us, which is so pertinent to this point, is that essentially anybody that's got an ABN, right, that's operating with an ABN as a sales agent in real estate, AUSTRAC have got a big, long list of every single one of them. And come July 1, people that aren't registered after, I think it's 28, I think on the 28th of July, I think it is, or the 21st.
28th, yep.
They're all going to get a letter saying chop chop or else, right? You cannot ignore getting registered, because there's going to be no mercy shown. They've been on about this for a long time, and there's going to be zero leniency. So if you try and go up to them with some sort of sob story, they're going to laugh at, they're not going to laugh at you, but they're going to say, look, too bad, so sad. 19.5 grand a day. Cough it up, right? Yep. Get your arse in gear. The reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to see my fellow industry brothers and sisters go down in a big ball of flames here, all right? Because 9.5 grand a day, I don't know about you, I know I can't afford that, right? Get your ass in gear with this. And the other thing, the conjecture over whether you are obliged to do the AML checks for anything, any listings that are under authority that haven't sold, or any sales that have happened pre-July 1 that are settling after July 1. There's a little bit of conjecture over the word obligation with that, but the way I see it is, yes, so buyers are going to need to be ran through AML for the settlements for sure, but for me, and this is one thing that I was chatting to a couple of people that have already registered with the agency portal and Lucas and the team. My take on this is you might as well get yourself set up and use your current clients to get into the process and get used to the process and get your dialogue down pat, because these current clients that are under authority or under contract, they're working with you already. So providing that you approach them and say, hey, look, and we'll get Joe Mooney on one of these calls, I think, because Joe's been a tremendous proponent of this. She's basically gone up to the clients that she's already got and used this as an opportunity to practice her process by saying to them, look, we've been told you've got to do this. It's the first time we've done it. Yeah, we're just going to need a little bit of patience from you, but we need to go through this process of AML, which is making sure that you own the property and you are who you say you are and all that sort of stuff. If you could please just help us to go through this by going through the process with me, that would be really, really great. All right, using it as an opportunity to learn, to iron out any creases and all those sorts of things is such a good idea, because if you start doing this with people that aren't your clients yet, and you haven't worked on your dialogue, and you haven't worked on the way that you approach this, I will guarantee you will cock up a couple of opportunities. You will have potential sellers, potential vendors that you are trying to get under authority that will freak out if you deliver this in the wrong way. There's nothing to freak out about. At the end of the day, if they've loaned any money in any way, shape or form, they've had to go through this in some way, shape or form, right?
Yep.
It's not new to the general population, but it's definitely new coming from a bunch of agents that the general population inherently don't trust. Get your dialogue sorted by working with the clients you've already got through that process, iron out any kinks in your process, in your dialogue, and make sure that you are absolutely down pat, rocking and rolling. Make sure you've got your AML information in your listing information as well. I'd have it attached to your authority, to be honest. I'd have it attached, you know how with sales contracts, Lucas, we had to bring in a due diligence checklist, which formed part of the contract, part of the Section 32. I would just add this in as a part of that, right? I just have it as a standard thing for all 32 or all sales paperwork, whichever state you're in. Now, Lucas, in terms of making sure that they can get this sorted, another massive issue that I've heard and I've been told, and I've seen, is that there are lots and lots of AML third-party providers now. It's par for the course. As soon as something new comes in, a whole bunch of players come into the game. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing, though, is a lot of train wrecks because of the nature of how some of these other AML platforms have tried to onboard way too many at once, right? We're not going to name names. We're not going to trash any particular provider. However, what has become abundantly clear is two things. One, the onboarding process has been very, very haphazard, maybe through sheer volume, but also some of the costs that I've heard about. I'm really refraining from swearing because I'm in Bali and I'm trying to be nice to everybody, but it is effing mental. It is absolutely atrocious, some of the profiteering going on with this process, right? Now, again, team, this might sound a bit salesy, and I don't care if it does, to be honest, because ultimately you can either listen to us or you can you can charge your customers more, and then they'll put a bit more scrutiny on you, right? Lucas, with the agency portal and your AML process, just go through. Well, let's go one step above. Go through the general costs that are going to be associated for every single transaction, irrespective of the AML player, and then just go into the ones that the cost that you bring.
Sure. So I think you raise a really good point about volumes, but more importantly too, we're not just an AML business. So there's a lot of companies that just provide AML services. And if you just provide AML services, you'll go into any market, which could be accounting, legal, precious gems, finance, or real estate. Because the agency portal was founded originally on SailFunder, which is the VPA buy now, pay later platform, we already understood the real estate workflow, and that's all our clients are. We don't work with accountants or lawyers, we just work with real estate agents. So our platform's really been built and designed around the existing real estate workflow. So all of our training, all of our onboarding, everything's about real estate. Now, yes, there is some differences per state, but the majority of them, it's pretty much the same. So that's enabled us to be able to take on additional volumes, additional clients, because we just do one thing and one thing only, and we do it really, really well. The next thing is the costs. So with AML, there is a cost to doing this. There's no doubt about it. And you've really got two things to think about. So one is your ongoing monthly maintenance costs, which is your AML plan, your platform, and your risk assessment profile. And then the other thing is consumable costs. So what does it cost you to actually do the checks? Okay. Which goes back to trust. You mentioned trust before, and you're right. Real estate agents already have to struggle to build trust. They have to work really hard to build that trust. And our consumable provider is provided by a company called Equifax. Now, anybody that doesn't know who Equifax are, they work with the big four banks. So Equifax are trusted by the big four banks to provide these AML solutions. And because they do so many, and we've already been working with them for so many years, the AML consumable costs, we just pass on net. So we pay $6 for a KYC check and $19 for a company. So in our view, this is a compliance cost. It's not something to profiteer out of. So we just pass that cost on dollar for dollar. Some companies are charging $40, $60, or $80 to do a KYC check, which is insane. And those ongoing costs, if you're an agent and you're presenting a listing, like you said, you should be talking about it up front, letting them know it's coming. But clearly let them know that you're not going to profiteer out of it. Your AML cost is $6 because another agent might have to charge $80 for a check, which automatically ruins trust if you're pitching for a listing. So
try 212.
Geez, that's outrageous.
That's what I was told on the weekend.
Yeah. So if you have a really, really complex case and you need our lawyers to be involved, we'll charge $49, which we think will probably be 1 or 2 out of 100. And even then, if you're good enough, you may not even use that service, right? We only charge the consumable costs. Now, the month-to-month service, we've included it in using our other services. So if you're a SailFunder client, which we've got thousands of agents across Australia already using our service, there's no cost. If you're using agency settlements, which is a service that helps us understand how the buyer paid, because we plug directly into the banking network, so that is a big help for your AML for the buyer side. We also too help remove the sales trust account because the funds go directly to PEXA. Though that's also too AML included. So if you're using one of those two services, SailFunder for your VPA permit processing or agency settlements, we provide the platform for free. There's no monthly subscription, no contracts, and you only pay for the consumables. So a lot of agents that are already using our services have taken that service up, and of course we're using it to grow our business. But at the end of the day though, our belief is that AML really in a year or two's time will be priced at that number. So if you're taking a service out of fear or signing up to a service to think it's better, it's like, well, we use the same provider the big four banks use, so how is that any better? We've also too had Neil Jeans as a partner for some time now to help us ensure that our platform's good enough. The same guy the government picked. We have people like Vanessa, our chief legal officer, running the legal team. So we are a law firm, so you can call us if you have any questions. But at the end of the day, though, this is a cost of doing business. We've had to incur these costs for the last 6 years as a AML registered entities, as a lender. And because we understand the real estate workflow, it's been really simple. But $212, that's outrageous. Yeah,
Per person.
that's crazy. So on average, there's 3.2 people per sale. So two vendors, one buyer, or two buyers, one vendor. So that's, $700 almost just to do your AML checks. And in comparison for us, it'd be $18. And
It's ridiculous.
It's no different. We're using exactly the same services that that they would be. It's crazy.
It is. It's obscene, man. And when I saw that, I'm like, look, I don't care if this comes across as a little bit salesy. I really couldn't give a stuff. But
we're not going to get. We're going to be millionaires out of $6, Andy. So,
you know what I mean? Because that's just taking the Mickey. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely taking the Mickey out of the game. It really, really is. And this is something that can't be messed around. You have to do this. You can't just opt to do this. So I just feel that one thing that this has perhaps exposed is that we as agents, as operators, we really need to put in the time and the effort to do a bit more homework on these sorts of things, right? When something is legal that is going to have to happen, the amount of people that have somewhat blindly just followed a process that they've been told to do without doing their own due diligence. Now, there is going to be some inherent sort of conjecture over liability, right, with this. So, when I was having chatting to Vanessa earlier on Saturday, this was a really interesting part of the conversation when it became a question of, well, if it hits the fan, is it going to be the site, or is it going to be the brand that's going to ultimately be liable, right? And one thing that Vanessa pointed out, which is absolutely, I'm so glad she pointed this out, right, are the T's and C's. Now, the amount of times, I don't know about you, mate, I'm guilty of this, when Apple give me an iOS update and they tell me to go through the T's and C's and agree, and I'm done. I'm ticky tick tick, rock and roll, don't bother me till next time, right? But what this has brought to my attention is, my gosh, if you haven't read your T's and C's and understand the liabilities that the AML providers are accountable for, be very, very careful, because I think what she said was it was the limit, like the actual liability limit that a lot of these AML providers have put into their T's and C's, which might cover a small fraction of the cost, but it definitely won't cover the whole bill. Right? Now, make sure that if you haven't, and if you've already signed up to an AML provider, that's totally cool, but go back through those T's and C's and look for where their liability starts and ends, and to what extent it's liable for. Because that's something that I didn't even consider until I had the chat with Vanessa on Saturday. But that's why she's a lawyer and I'm not, essentially.
Just to expand on that point, none of the AML providers will be taking on any liability. However, when they talk about, you can outsource it to us, a lot of agents think that's exactly what's happened. But you've outsourced it to them and they're doing it for you and it's not your problem anymore. Well, actually, that's not the case. They're very clearly not taking on any liability at all. They're just charging for a service that people are charging $212 for something that isn't that hard to do. And all of the liability remains with that responsible entity. So anybody that says you can outsource it or push the liability to me or whatever, they're bullshitting. It's just that simple. The other thing too as well is a lot of these contracts don't have cooling off periods. So a lot of agents will think, I've signed a contract, how do I get out? Or I can't get out, or I'm not happy with the AML provider I'm with because they're not servicing me because they're dealing with accountants and lawyers as well. They don't understand my business. How do I get out of this contract? So, well, small businesses have protections under the ACCC legislation. And a lot of these contracts, if not all of the ones we've seen, don't have any cooling off periods. And because they don't have a cooling off period, you automatically get one under the law. So if you've signed a contract and you're not happy, go back to have a look at it, have a look at legislation, because there might be a way for you to get out without a penalty. And that's something where I was asking people to have a look at. And then they can, be a judge for themselves if they do or don't want to cancel those contracts, because don't feel you've locked yourself into a 30 grand a year agreement for something that you can get for free.
You put it like that, mate. Wowee. That's pretty full on, isn't it, when you think
Yeah,
about it?
well, the issue we have, people think it's too good to be true. And I 100% understand that. We've actually gone back and thought, shit, we should have charged 20 grand for this service just to make people feel they're getting something for it. But we just couldn't consciously do it when we've been doing this for years already, and you're using one of our other two services. We're already doing those other services anyway. So why would we charge for something like this when we have to do it ourselves? That was our conclusion, and it's something we're still sticking by, and are very proud to be able to say to do that.
I think one of the best things that I've seen as a result of some of the early adopters to your platform, man, has been the ability to house all your sales trust stuff, all the sales trust accounting through your platform as well, man. Especially for smaller independent firms, ones that are giving it a crack by themselves and giving it a red hot go under their own brand. The ability to be able to offload that concern of a sales trust is even better, because then they don't even have to then do a stupid charge for $18, $16, you know what it is. They don't have to do some nominal charge, right? To get the checks done, because it all just comes out as settlement as part of the sales trust accounting work that you guys do. It's just an easy edit, so it still makes it just a single transaction that goes through. And the other thing is, a lot of the costs that you just mentioned then, the 30 odd grand a year subscription fees and all that sort of stuff, it's actually tipping, and it's actually like the straw that breaks a lot of backs with directors who are like, you know what, I'm struggling to maintain profitability as it is. I can't be asked anymore. And that's why we're actually seeing a number of directors that are of age where they're at that tipping point, don't I carry on, or don't I sell up, that are just going, screw this. And we're losing a lot of experience as a result of it. We're losing a lot of years of experience out the game, because they're looking at these extra costs and going, you know what, this is just it's just one subscription too much.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Like our services are billed at settlement, so there's no monthly subscriptions, no invoicing. We've done it again. Going back to real estate, is our customers. That's who we want to deal with. So we've aligned our business with yours. We make sure that we get paid when you get paid, and which is very different to the majority of real estate agency suppliers that are out there. They have a monthly subscription, they have minimum fees, they have lock-in contracts. For us, we've just gone, you know what, if we want to work with this industry for a long time, we need to align ourselves with it and the way that it gets paid, and we'll get paid the same way. So we suffer from just as many ups and downs as you do as a business operator through cash flow, but that's something we've had to manage, and we've made sure we've got enough resources in place to do that. But yeah, these monthly subscriptions are incredibly high, and they're already high. There's already enough out there to pay, and to line yourself up to just get paid, to have these costs paid at settlement, we've made sure we've structured ourselves to be able to cope with that, which is something we're very proud of.
Amazing. Now, before I let you go, Lucas, the other big questions that I've been getting as we've been leading up to it have come from those that are representing buyers, so buyer agents or buyer advocates, and auctioneers. So first off, with the buyer advocates, again, having a really, really good chat to Vanessa, and I'll get you to verify that I'm on the money with this. With buyer agents and buyer advocates, the reality for you guys is that if you have signed an authority, a binding authority, to act on behalf of a purchaser for the purposes of negotiation and so on and so forth, even if the buyers are the ones signing the contract, then you are required to be registered with AUSTRAC, and you need to take your buyers through those AML checks. Is that right, Lucas?
That is correct, yeah. So if you're involved in the transfer of a sale of transfer of title, acting as a buyer's agent, as a licensed real estate agency or agent, then yes, you need to have an AML plan in place. So it was an area that we did neglect, because we actually don't deal with a lot of buyer's agents. So sorry to that part of the market, but we have since come up with a solution which is $999 to give buyers agents access to our portal for 3 years, which includes some AML training, and then the consumable costs are just paid on a per credit card basis. So we do now have a service for buyers agents, and we only just put that together over the last couple of weeks. And there's been a lot of buyers agents that have been contacting us, so we can service buyers agents. We can help them register. We can give them an AML plan, a risk assessment profile, but more importantly, a depository or a portal to log and record all of their AML activity for their audit, which will come in 3 years' time. So, so if you're a buyer's agent, please feel free to visit theagencyportal.com.au and register, and I'm happy to see what we can do to help you.
Amazing. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that the appropriate links are there for your buyer agents. Now, for auctioneers, it's not so much the case. Again, chatting to Vanessa about this, because we are basically, this is going to sound really crass, but basically we are tools of an agent's trade, right? Essentially, and because we are a tool, I don't know if I like referring to auctioneers as tools, but anyway, if the shoe fits, or if the tool fits, essentially, how harsh. Essentially, what that means, gang, is that because we are not an acting authority in any way, shape, or form, and this also includes those of us that need to sign on behalf of mortgagors. So if we're doing a mortgage e-sale and the bank has requested that we are the signatory for the lender who is responsible for their forced sale, we do not have to register with AUSTRAC. We're not seen as an authority in that regard. We are just seen as a whole bunch of tools, really loud ones. Am I right there, Lucas?
Yeah, spot on. So again, like no different to a signboard provider or a photographer, you're an auxiliary service to the real estate industry, and you're not transferring the title across from one to the other or participating in that as your key service. So, so unless you are selling property yourself or a buyer's agent separately and you do auctioneer work, if you're just purely an auctioneer and nothing else, you don't need to be registered. If you decide one day you want to become a buyer's agent or a selling agent, then you do need to register.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually even pushed Vanessa a little bit further and said, because she said you're not the one that's identifying the buyer in legal terms, i.e. in writing. Yep. And I said, but is that not though? But do we not identify the buyer by the process of knocking down the hammer and saying you are the buyer, right? That process of saying sold, congratulations, and identifying the buyer verbally with the action of selling the property to them at auction, it still doesn't mean that we are actually then registering them as the purchaser responsible for buying that house.
That's correct.
Amazing. Lucas, mate, thank you so much. And chances are we're probably going to have to jump on here one or two more times or a few more times.
Not a problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. I have about 8 missed calls to get to, but happy to help out.
Mate, you're an absolute superstar. Team, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go back to the sun, sea and sand for a little bit, but make sure you get across this AML stuff. If you have any dramas, reach out to me, reach out to Lucas. We can hook you up with the right people who can make sure that they walk you through this, handhold you through this, and make sure that you do the right thing, because you can't afford not to, gang. Stay safe, healthy, happy, team. Get your laughing gear around this AML stuff if you haven't already. If you have any questions that are really sort of you're not sure, the only daft questions are one you don't ask, and I say that to all vendors, I say that to everybody, and I'm saying that to you. And no more important topic than this AML carry on, all right? Take care, team, and we'll speak to you again soon.